What is going on, everybody on YouTube? I'm with you guys right now. I'm out to make a hearty yet delicious stew. One that's super healthy for you with a lot of whole ingredients. One that's pretty simple, pretty easy, but tastes delicious as well. It's going to include a whole bunch of ingredients, probably about 8 or 9 different ones. And I hope you guys like this video. I'm looking forward to eating it myself. So what I already did to get started is I took some butter and I put a whole bunch in, and I'm just heating it up now, getting it ready so I can start adding my first ingredients. Let me see if I can straighten out this camera a little bit. Okay, let me try that. That way you guys can still see me. The first thing that I'm going to be adding is going to be the onions. Once this is completely hot, which it almost is, making sure that it is. Butter burns fast, so I want to keep it moving. So the first thing I'm going to be using is a whole bunch of cut onions. I have some of them in some pretty big chunks. I like to do that. I know that onions break down pretty quickly, so you don't have to worry about it if you cut them big. When you're cooking something for a long period of time, like onions, they tend to break down. So the first step is just going to be browning these onions, browning them, and I'm going to add the garlic right away as well. So I have some garlic already cut up, again, fairly big chunks. I know some people like to cut their garlic pretty small. I don't see the point of it when I'm doing a stew, but that part is up to you. If you guys are following along or going to make a stew similar to what I'm doing, I mean, feel free to cut it up in any sizes that you guys want. I hope this isn't distracting, not be able to see me completely. Maybe change that angle a little bit. That might be a bit better for you guys. Hopefully it is. So we got the onions and we got the garlic in there. And I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. So I got it on fairly high heat. Maybe about 1 or 2 notches away from the max. When you're cooking at such high heats with butter, like I was saying earlier, you want to keep everything moving, or else everything's going to start burning on you pretty quickly and sticking. I personally like to use like a stainless steel pan or pot. I know some people have the ones with the inside, the finishes with them and stuff. I can't remember what they're called. I prefer not to use that. I don't want things really flaking off. If that's what you guys got, though, you know, that's what you got. I know they can be a little bit less expensive. So right now the onions are looking really good. The onions and the garlic. It's all starting to smell really great as well. So I'm going to cook this for a couple more moments. And then I'm going to add in this big old pile of meat that I got. The meat that I'm using is not stewing steak or stewing beef, which a lot of people would use for a stew. I mean, it makes sense. I'm actually using Angus beef, but I'm using simmering steak. It's the same type of idea, but there's a higher fat content in it. More marbling, more fat, and I like the fat again. I think it's really good and healthy for you. Especially if you don't eat a lot of carbs, then your body is like kind of on ketosis or in a state of ketosis, which means that you're using fat as your number one fuel. So I kind of do dabble in a lot of carbs, or not a lot. I have in the last few days, but I try to keep them to a limit, and I feel the most healthiest and the best when I do have low amounts of carbs, or let's say complex carbs are better. But when I'm not eating carbs, things like pasta and bread and stuff like that, my body feels amazing. I burn the fat off I have. Like right now I'm carrying quite a bit of tummy fat. It's probably because of the carbs I was eating. I probably gained some pounds in just like a few days of eating poorly. And I'm trying to get myself back into a state of more ketosis where I'm eating complex carbs and meat, so probably around 60-70%, like meat, and then the rest complex carbs, and you know, vegetables, fruits, which some would say are carbs as well. So that's all in that category. So maybe about 70% is a lot of times a lot of meat that I eat. So right now these onions are cooking up really good. So I'm going to add this meat here. As you can see, I got a big plate of it. I'll show you guys some of the fatty tissues and stuff, why I like to use this cut of meat in my stews as opposed to stewing beef. Stewing beef is usually usually a lot more lean, and this one's got a lot of chunks of fat in it. So this is my preference. So I'm going to add this in. I have about 3 pounds, 2.5 to 3 pounds of beef here. Again, I like using a lot of meat, high proteins and stuff. I'm going to put that to the side, and now that I handle some meat, I'm just going to wash my hands quickly, which is obviously very important. I'm not sure, yeah, I guess you guys can kind of see me. I do apologize about these angles, guys. Again, I have my little tripod thing that can hold my phone. It kind of broke, so I'm not able to use it. The next time I make a video, if this is popular, you guys like watching me cook and being part of it and looking at some of my recipes, then I'll do it again, and I'll make sure I get a new one of those stands for my phone. They're actually not very expensive. There's a store across the street from my house. It's called Giant Tiger. If you're from Canada, you would know it. It's a Canadian chain franchise. And they carry, it's kind of like a small Walmart, except they don't got nearly as much stuff as a Walmart. They're like a Canadian version, and in a lot of cases they're a little bit even less expensive than Walmart too. And their product, like their stuff's pretty decent. It's not super high end, and it's not super low end either. So I can get one of these stands maybe only for $15. By the time I realized today, I was going to not only make a video, but by the time I found the stand that I have and realized it was broken, the store is already closed. So it's late here where I am. I tend to do a lot of late dinners. It's about 10 p.m. at night already. So everything's kind of closed where I can get that, especially that store. So right now the meat is starting to get a nice brown color. I'm not sure how well you guys can see it. I'm going to wait till I don't really see too much pink on the meat. Now again, this is really simple. Probably the hardest part, or the most time constraining part to making this stew, is just cutting up all the different ingredients. Once all the ingredients are cut up and ready to go, it's a pretty simple process to make this. And this is all looking really good. It definitely smells good. If you guys like onions and garlic, like right off the bat, the smell of onion and garlic is always a nice hearty smell that goes through the house, travels really quick. Usually when I'm about half an hour into cooking something like this, my cat starts meowing and telling me he's hungry. He's always got dry food out, but he likes to have his wet food. I give it to him twice a day. So usually when I get to cooking and stuff, he's like, whoa, man, that stuff smells good. I need to eat. So then I hook him up with his wet food. So at some point while I'm cooking, you might even hear him yelling at me and telling me he wants some. And you guys might be able to hear this sizzling a little bit. Again, I'm working with high heat here. I'm going to keep the heat pretty high for another few minutes until this gets a nice brown color, which is all coming together pretty good already, so it won't be too much longer. And at this point as well, I can add mushrooms. So there's a system to when you want to add stuff. I have, I can't remember the name of the mushrooms right now, but they have the brown outer side. If you guys know, maybe add it to the comments. If I remember later, I'll add it to the comments. But it's a nice, hearty, thick mushroom. And I'm going to add that in right away. That's one of the things you can kind of fry at a higher heat or brown. It's not actually necessary to do this with mushrooms, but it's not a big deal if you do. And in my case, I actually like the flavor of browning these ingredients. When you brown something, you kind of slightly fry it with butter. It just leaves a really nice taste. So I got those in it, and this is where I'm going to add my first little bit of spices. So now I like a lot of spices in my food. So I have cayenne pepper here. That's a spicy, spicy pepper. And it's really good for your heart. If you look it up, it's one of the things that prevent this, that you can eat with your food that actually reduces the risk of heart attack. And I've actually heard a study that if somebody's having a heart attack, if they take a spoonful of this, which I mean, that would be hot, it stops a heart attack in its tracks. Now, I can't say that's real or not, so don't take my advice. Call an ambulance if you're having a heart attack and get some help, medical help ASAP. But one of the things I believe would be more is preventative. Now, I added a very healthy amount of this into my stew. Pretty much what I did is I just covered the complete surface at top and a decent layer of the spice. And I'm going to do that with most of the spices here that I'm using. Another spice that I'm using here is Italian seasoning, which is a mixture of basil, oregano, and thyme. Again, I want to put a fairly healthy amount with all that meat in there and all the other ingredients I'm adding. You don't have to be shy with adding the spices. Now, I did add a quite healthy amount of garlic already, but I'm going to add some garlic powder. Not a lot, but just barely cover up the top. Garlic's one of these things that's kind of hard to overdo unless you're like adding an insane amount. Now, besides the cayenne pepper, I'm also going to use here some black pepper, just basic black pepper. Same idea, I just want to put a thin layer across everything. And then another ingredient I'm going to be adding is ginger. Ginger is just a super good, healthy food, spice, however you want to call it. It's super healthy for you to ingest. It's great for digestion. And it adds a nice kind of flavor. It's like light, you really don't notice it, but it does add a little bit. Now I'm going to stir this all up. And I don't have my salt handy, but I'm going to go grab that. It's super close. I'm still here with you guys. I like to use a pink Himalayan salt. It's got a whole bunch of minerals in it. So I like to add a very healthy amount. Salt, again, there's a lot of people that say it's not good for you. But our bodies operate off of salt. In fact, if you don't have enough salt in your body, you'll pay a price. You'll start getting sick from not having enough. Obviously, there's a limit. You can't have too much either. But you shouldn't be shy about using your salt. I'll put that over here. So now I'm going to stir this up again. And everything, too bad that there's not technology yet, like a smell cam where you guys can smell what I'm smelling right now. Because this is smelling delicious. And everything's got a nice color to it. Everything's nice and darkened. Brown, I'll lift it up. Maybe you guys can kind of see a little bit of what's going on. Here, maybe I can do this. I think you guys can see a little bit here what's going on. So that's what it's looking like so far. Let me place that back up here. Oop, now I'm out of the picture. Change that angle. Okay. And again, I'm just going to keep on stirring it. Now, when I said that this stuff is really, really simple to make, no exaggeration. Most of this is just adding ingredients at the right time. So now that this is all browned up, the next thing I'm going to add is now going to be carrots. So I chopped up some carrots. I like my carrots fairly big, so I got some big chunks. I got all different varying degrees of sizes. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. I like to see big chunks of stuff, so that's in there now. I'm going to give that a stir. Ooh, and the colors of that is looking really good. That orange really brings it out. Now the next thing I'm going to add This is important, sweet potatoes. Not only for flavor, but sweet potatoes are going to thicken your sauce up. So I have some of them pieces cut really small or fairly small and thin even. This one's thin and fairly small, as you can see. And then other ones are in much bigger chunks. Now the ones that are bigger chunks, I did it on purpose. They won't break down as quick. The smaller pieces are going to melt. They're going to melt into your stew, and they're going to thicken up the sauce. So not only is your sauce going to taste amazing with the sweet potato in it, but it's going to get thicker from it. A lot of people, when they make stews, they have a hard time getting that thickness that is ideal, and this is going to help with that. So I have all the different varying degrees of sizes. I'm going to add that in there. The bigger ones will stay, so that way I get to eat through and I get to see the big chunks of sweet potatoes later that I'm going to be eating. And we're going to give this a little stir through. Now this pot is getting really, really full. As you guys can imagine, I'm going to show you guys another peek of it in a few minutes. Now what I'm going to do is I have some white potatoes. I cut them up pretty small, most of the pieces. Some of the pieces are a little bit bigger. I'm not too worried about making things uniform in size. Again, some of these like really, really small pieces of potato are almost going to break up a little bit, and then the bigger ones are going to stay whole. So I'll be able to, when I'm going through my stew and eating it later, I'm going to have big pieces of potato there. I'm going to be chomped down on. So I'm going to add this now as well. So there's potatoes in there. I'm going to give that a stir again. It's getting harder and harder to stir because of how much great stuff is in here. I'm going to show you guys again. Oh, you can already see it coming up the top of the pot. There we go. So that's how that's looking so far. The pot's almost full. I wouldn't worry because everything breaks down. So don't worry if you have a pot and you're kind of following along and it's looking full. As it starts heating, it's all going to break down. So it won't seem as much and it won't be like overflowing or nothing like that. Now at this point, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to add my beans. So this is just a can of beans here. It is 6 beans. I like all different types of beans. I'm not a picky eater. I know some of you guys probably are. This one specifically has chickpeas, dark red kidney beans, black-eyed peas, not the group, white beans, Romano beans, Lima beans. So I'm going to put these in here. These are all super healthy beans. A lot of protein. Again, I like to have a lot of high protein in my diet, especially at my age. We're not as efficient, men my age, at converting protein and breaking it down so that it's efficiently breaking it down so it absorbs into your body. So we need to eat a little bit more protein as you get older to keep strength and to stay stronger. Also, you might have noticed I just squeezed this can. The reason I do is for the safety of animals. When this ends up in landfill and recycling and stuff like that, I don't want a bunch of critters sticking their heads in here and getting stuck in bad, I wouldn't want to be responsible for any animals, going through something like that. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some water. As far as water goes, you want to have, you want to cover it so it's just below the level of the food. And then if you need to add more in, you can later on. Most likely you won't though, especially as your potatoes and your carrots and everything, they start to, and I'm going to use filtered water. I forgot to fill up my jug, so I don't got a ton of filtered water. I do prefer to use Brita filtered water. It takes out the chlorine out of the water. I don't think I'll have enough for what I need here. I might have to use some of the tap water as well. Yeah, it looks like I'll probably have to use some of the tap water. Ooh, just a tiniest bit actually. So there's a tiny, tiny bit, and then that's really good. And I'm going to show you guys kind of where it looks like now. So I don't know if you can see the water level in there. It's just up around where the food is. So you can kind of just see it. That'd probably be, in my opinion, the perfect level of water. And now one of the last ingredients, there's only 2 more that I'm going to be adding in through this process. And the one is important. A lot of people use beef bouillon, it's called, in their stews. I like just to use a basic old can of gravy. That will thicken it up and add a lot of really good flavor to your stew. So I'm going to add that in here. Again, it's a stew, so it kind of implies a bunch of ingredients that's going to stew together and slow cook. So this is going to be really good on the slow cook. And I'm just going to make sure that I get most of that gravy out. I'll add a tiniest bit more gravy or water to it just to get that gravy out. There we go, that's good. And same thing, I like to do this with my cans. I'm going to crush it. That way the animals don't get into it. And I'm trying to mess with this camera angle again. I really would like you guys to be able to see me and the food. That might be a decent little angle. Okay. And now I got to be careful because everything's getting close to the top with my stirring. Now this is going to be pretty much the basics of everything I'm adding. And it's almost as simple as that. The one last thing that I will add, and I'm not going to do it until maybe about 30 minutes before the food is done, is I have a little, maybe just over a half a cup of rice. I'm using long grain basmati rice. I think basmati rice has the best taste and flavor and cooks the best. Everybody's got their own opinions. There's several different types of rice out there. For me, that's where it's at. But I'm not going to add that closer to the end. So it's just going to be simple. I already got it pretty much measured out. Now, the idea behind the rice is it's a complex carb. It's a carb, but it's decent for you. And then it's also going to help thicken up the sauce again. So it's going to make that sauce really ideal. And so, it's a good little add-on. I know most people would never add rice to their stew. And you don't want to add too much. You just want to have it so like the odd bite, you get a little bit of rice in with your bite as well. So this is all coming around really, really nicely. I'm just going to do my best to mix this all through. You guys can probably see it coming out the top a little bit. That's how much I got. Now this is enough to feed like 4 people twice, depending on how much big eaters you are. And I like that idea because tomorrow I'm going to be having stew for dinner as well. I'll just be reheating it though. I'll take a portion out, put it in a smaller pot, reheat it, and the bigger pot here I'll keep in the fridge once it's done. And that will be a really simple dinner for tomorrow. That is just delicious. And a lot of times, things like stew get better after the next day because all the flavors really, really sink into everything. The potatoes will absorb it. Everything will really absorb that flavor. Okay, this is smelling incredible. Again, I wish there was a smell cam so you guys can enjoy this smell, this aroma with me. And now that I got all the ingredients in, it's going to be literally as simple as this. I'm going to turn this down to not quite minimum, but just above minimum. There's numbers on the dial of my burner, and so like the number would be 2 that I have it at. So I'm going to put it at 2, and I'm going to bring it to a boiling point, a slow boiling point. So I'm going to let it get there slowly, and this is going to be roughly an hour and a half cook is what I'm going to make this for. And that's it. So I'm going to end this video in a minute. Before I do, I'll let you guys take another look at what I've done here. Lots of nice colors in there. You can see all the different beans, the onions, all the different ingredients. The only thing that's missing in there is just the rice so far. And again, like I said, I want to let that sit for a little while before I add that. Probably if it's about an hour and a half that I let this cook, in about an hour I'll add the rice. It's going to be a super late dinner for me, but it's going to be a super delicious dinner. I'm kind of like a late guy anyways. I don't get things done because of work and different things that I do. I usually don't get home till a little bit later in the evening. And by the time I do reaction videos and different things like that, I don't have a lot of time. Sometimes I eat first before reaction videos. Sometimes I don't, but usually it's a late start. So if I go to the gym or go to work, then go to the gym, you know, then it's even later night. Sometimes I don't even get started cooking till like 11 o'clock at night, which is why I don't cook really long meals every night through the week. I usually try to do my nice big meals on the weekend. Today is a Saturday. I did work a little bit earlier in the afternoon, only for a few hours, but I did work. And I like to do what's called intermediate fasting as well, as much as I can. So I pretty much will live off of a couple coffees through the day. And so I haven't eaten nothing. And that gives me a chance to break down some of the excess food that was left in my belly before I add a bunch of new in. Anyhow, I'm about to cover this now. So I'm going to cover this up and I'm going to let it come to its boil slowly. And this is, other than adding the rice in about 30 minutes, this is it. This is how you make it. So I'm going to stop this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave some comments. Let me know what you guys think. Is this a stew that so far you think you would eat? Or actually, if you have ingredients that you add to your stew, or if you have a different way of doing it, let me know. I'm always open to improve and learn and make better stew and better food. I'm also been wondering what type of ingredients other people add to their stews. So please leave a comment, let me know. And I will be back with either a second part, or I'll just add on to this video when it gets close to being done, or maybe even when I add the rice. And maybe I'll do a little taste tester on video with you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching.